All right. So welcome all. My name's Dave Widener, and I lead market development for Pelion IoT at ARM, based out of Seattle, Washington. Today, I have the pleasure of inviting the leading experts from our partnership to share some of the latest developments in integrated SIM, or iSIM as it's commonly called. We'll hear from them on the technology itself, what solutions are available for hardware and software developers, and then we'll turn the table over to you for your questions to our panelists. You'll find yourself on mute through the session, but please submit the questions via the chat function included in Zoom. I have our team supporting and monitoring the chat for Q&A. We'll pick from your questions, and if you wish to target your question particularly to a specific panelist, please indicate that in the text of your question. You'll find yourself on mute through this session, but please submit you'll find yourself on mute throughout the session, just as a reminder. So please remember to submit those questions in the chat. What I'd like to do is take the opportunity to introduce you to our panelists. And so I'm going to begin by introducing us. Let me start with Avishai. I'd like to introduce you, and from Sony, if you wouldn't mind.
Hello, everybody. My name is Avishai Shraga from Sony Semiconductor Israel, Head of Security Technologies, located in Israel. We are part of this partnership for integrated SIM, pioneering the integrated hardware and the required supply chain to support it. And I'm happy for you having me here. Thank you.
Thanks, Avishai. Phil, would you like to go ahead?
Of course. Well, it's very good to be here. I'm Phil Skipper. I'm the head of strategy for Vodafone's IoT business. And we connect about 100 million devices worldwide at the moment. And we're providing the connectivity and working within this ecosystem with ARM. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Phil. Juan, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you, David, for having me. My name is Juan Nogueira. I'm leading the Center of Excellence for Connectivity in Flex. And we are in this partnership, and we are providing our help to facilitate through hardware tools to facilitate the adoption of the integrated SIM in the future our customers.
Thanks, Juan, and welcome. And then finally, Loic.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me. So I'm Loic Bonvalet. I'm the Product Marketing Director for the Key and SIM solution at ARM. Happy to be here also to discuss the benefits of iSIM with you.
Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining, and I'm really glad to have this group of panelists here with me today to walk through this discussion around iSIM. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about, to kind of set the stage on iSIM and what we're talking about here really. So if you think about iSIM, or the integrated SIM, this really comes from a journey that we've seen over the past 30 plus years of what is the SIM technology, or also known as UICC. You know, the SIM has been a ubiquitous point that's been part of the how mobile network operators connect and bring devices onto the network. You know, the SIM holds that unique identity that allows you to identify a device and the users tied to it. The SIM also protects the mobile operators' mobile network operators' valuable network credentials, and more importantly, it's the gatekeeper that allows you to determine that a SIM can connect, what services you can have, and really controls that quality of service, as well as the ability to actually maintain that relationship and deliver on the quality that comes with it. You know, the one key thing though is historically the traditional SIM can't change ownership afterwards, and typically you have to require a physical SIM, and so it's going to be a take one SIM out, slide it in. You know, most of us have had that experience throughout our lives handling various phones or other devices, right? And so the interesting part there is that as you think about the traditional SIM card and how it worked well in a consumer, yes, I can bring a device in, I can tackle that, take a phone in, switch it out. That's worked fine. But as you think about that in the context of IoT and M2M, machine-to-machine type communication, that journey has been a different piece there. And so what we've seen is that inability to switch the SIM has led to where we've had to see unique solutions created, like multi-IMSI, which is effectively an ability that allows you to change or drive things rapidly there. What we've seen over that time is from the traditional plastic SIM to the eSIM, there's been this change that really was a focus around M2M. It's creation of a physical SIM that's still part of it, but it allows you to actually switch the SIM from one organization to another. So I can download a new profile, I could provision a new piece, and we've seen that the GSMA and other areas have created specifications around this. So we're seeing standardization come around the eSIM. But the one challenge with that has been that effectively, as you know, that brings on another physical piece. But as you think about design and concept, you had to actually solder on a new piece of SIM. What this has led to is effectively that move to the next generation, which is the integrated SIM or iSIM. And effectively, you know, this extends the eSIM concept of I can change what the operator is, or I can change ownership of the SIM, change it based on where it might be deployed, what are the use cases I need to tackle, or what type of capabilities I need, and drive that in. The interesting part though is the integrated SIM has the same functionality as a traditional eSIM, but it's actually more tightly integrated into the system on chip itself, taking up less space, being more power efficient, and the benefits there. I'll go to the panelists now, and we'll start to talk about this in more detail. But just to set the stage, this gives you a view of how developers can actually take advantage of the technology. So I'm going to actually stop sharing this slides now. We're going to go back, and you'll start to see that we'll be talking to the people and bring everybody together on a central stage. Okay, so everybody, hopefully now we've got everybody on one single screen and we can all see each other here. Just to check with my fellow presenters, everything looks good?
Perfect, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. So let's kick this off, and wanted to start with an initial question here. So why don't we get started? You know, the first thought that we've had that we wanted to talk about was, you know, what actually led to the vision of the integrated SIM, and what problems does it actually address, you know, for the growth of cellular IoT and in general the market in itself? And Phil, I'd like to get your opinion on what you see on this.
That's a really interesting way to start, because IoT has been around for a long time. We connect 100 million devices, but what you have to bear in mind is that those devices are still relatively expensive, but actually they're quite difficult to connect onto the network. So what you do is you do them in large batches, and you need to actually plan that. And SIM provisioning is a key part of what we do. And we connect 30 million cars as they come off the production line. So that you've really got to put some skill and design into how you get these devices connected. Now, if we want to scale IoT and move it to the next level, you've got to make it really, really simple. And I think this is actually where iSIM comes to the fore, because a number of things are coming together. As you mentioned, the low cost and low battery life, the small size. So all of a sudden, everything is starting to shrink. But then through the partnership that we've actually got here, we've simplified that provisioning process. And I think we see a little later on, it's now as simple as ripping the corner off a label for that device to connect to the network, understand who the carrier should be, and then transform over the air. So this takes IoT from one level to completely a next level. And that next level is really about the mass adoption of IoT, where you can now apply it to much lower value assets, where you are constrained with power, you are constrained with size, and what you need to do is to have them auto provisioning. And I think that's the real value of iSIM. And I think that's where you're going to see this take IoT from being a large market to a very large market indeed.
It's a really interesting point that you bring there, Phil, as we work through this process. And I think, you know, as we look at that, I think as part of that partnership, I think, Lloyd, it'd be good if you could kind of address how we've been working through this partnership with this and our view on that as well.
Sure. So, well, I would relay one of the points from Phil, which is a name for simplicity, right? I think quite often the feedback we got from partners and integrators was that, especially for newcomers to cellulars, you have lots of choices to make, right? You have to select a device provider, connectivity, manufacturing, deal with initial provisioning, service your device in the field with potentially SIM issues, SIM being one of the, when you use a low-cost SIM, one of the first failure point of IoT devices, right? So really, one of the main goals of this initiative is really to bring simplicity, and especially to new companies who are coming to cellular, to deliver them really something that is ready to connect. I would call that, or coin that, ready to connect hardware. Really baking in the connectivity, the cellular connectivity right inside the chip, so that all this hard work is done at scale rather than individually by each OEM or each integrator of that type of technology. So that's really one of the key aspects of the benefits of integrated SIM.
And Avishai, you know, it'd be great to get your perspective coming from what Sony's been bringing to the table on this as well.
Yeah, so I think we saw similar things like our ecosystem partners, which is simplicity and scale, and practically enabling the mass market, letting our customer focus on what they are good at, their business logic, their value, and enabling it by doing everything integrated and simple and working out of the box to reach the market fast, lower their time to market, and also allowing them new and maybe cool use cases by having everything on a very small form factor that can practically be integrated in everything. Not only the integrated SIM itself, but the fact that the SIM is integrated as part of the chip. You have almost one chip that includes all this solution and allows you to do products and devices and address use cases that requires really small form factors.
Yeah, it's a really great point. It brings it goes back and speaks to that whole point of how you can expand the market, because now we can go and address all of these amazing capabilities and solutions that just weren't there before. And I think, you know, this really talks to the part about, you know, Phil, it'd be great if you can, you know, elaborate that, because we've seen some interesting solutions, you know, that this partnership brings. So if you could kind of expand on how this partnership brings solutions, you know, around iSIM and it opens up markets, that'd be a really great place if we could go and talk about that next.
Yeah, of course. And I think this, because it's a process more than a technology, this is really about making sure that the security that comes with the iSIM is actually fitted throughout that process, from whether it's designed in to where it's fabricated, to where the modem is, and where the label or the device is actually finally made. And what we're seeing is that iSIM is really coming into the fore, where you actually want to start tracking, for instance, very low value assets. Low value assets tend to be smaller than normal, they tend to be unpowered. And iSIM is also coming at the same time as many of the low power networks like NB-IoT. So all of a sudden, you're able to create new products that can go on things that you would never have thought possible to track before. A good example are packing labels, where you can now create smart labels that will actually measure what's happening to the parcel in transit. It will be able to tell you where it is, but more importantly, it even tell you when it's been opened. There's no reason why we can't fit that to bottles of perfume, bottles of spirit, high value parts, urgent parts. So this ability to have a much more flexible form factor that's small, works across low power networks, can work unpowered and last for a long period of time, opens up a completely new range of use cases that was never accessible before.
That's actually a really good point around that. And I think, you know, it brings the very, you know, the important part is what people can actually do with this and the companies and how they can take advantage of it. And I think that addresses one part of how they bring it to market. And I think the other part, Logan, it'd be great if you could expand on how we can also bridge those gaps around making that a reality for the end customer.
Sure, Dave. So I think one of the key points is to address, you know, the different point of views between the players of the industries, right? So on one side, you have the connectivity supplier, which are really keen to, you know, maintain really the high level of security, enable new business cases, etc. And also you have the hardware ecosystem, right, where ARM has been playing a prominent role for many years now, where you have a different set of constraints. You're concerned by your manufacturing costs, by your efficiencies into bringing your product to market, to certify them, etc. And so here at ARM, we are really aiming to bring facilities, secure services that facilitate this journey, right? So from software IP, right, the OS, the SIM OS itself, right, embedded deep inside the chip, to data generation services, that is to generate the secrets validated in partnership with the MNOs, right, to be loaded into those chips, and then establishing a process for the actual manufacturer to load those credentials securely without having to establish a very complex, security setup like you might have seen in the classical SIM world, right? So we're really trying to bring this logical security and these facilities to the ecosystem to just facilitate this journey.
That's a great point. And and to that journey, it'd be good, Juan, if you could kind of bring some color around this and Flex's view of how that helps on the journey that you bring to customers and their solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just linking what Loic was talking about bridging these gaps, I think we have at the end to also bring the gap to the device manufacturers. So there's the need to follow all the security chain to add this iSIM technology to load the profiles on the product at the end, on the final device at the end on manufacturing. And this collaboration is very important to be able to train all this effort and have all the stakeholders on all this chain up to date on how this has to smoothly run for the customer.
Thanks, Juan. I think that's a great segue into one of the commentary that we want to think about as well now is, and really, obviously, I really appreciate your position here on this is, what is the opportunities that this partnership, has opened up for device and chipset vendors?
So I guess for chipset vendors, it's opened up an opportunity to have a more complete offering to the customers and to make all the supply chain simpler to everybody. For device maker, it opens up the opportunity to have a very small device and that has everything and everything works, and to enable a lot of other new business models to address the needs of the industry and to address new markets. I think it also opens opportunity for chip vendors to offer a cellular IoT solution to non-cellular IoT device makers in the legacy, because the fact it makes it so simple, maybe even simpler than Wi-Fi, allows a device maker without special cellular expertise to adopt this technology and benefit from the values of the cellular, like global coverage and reliability, and a lot of use cases require reliability.
Thanks, Avishai. I think that's a really good perspective that you're bringing there. And Loic, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say really the fact to bring notably really much smaller pre-integrated hardware, right? I think that helps really to help companies who were not thinking to connect their product, right? Who had never thought about these opportunities or thought that would be really too complex to achieve, to rethink that statement and really focus on the value of the product rather than just the connected product coin, right? To really extract the value of their product and integrate a new journey with their customer, more integrated and more long-term. Also, I think that's one key point for the hardware ecosystem, to be able to have a long-lasting relationship with their customers.
So thanks, Loic. That's a good point. As we're looking at this, we've got some questions coming in. So I think it'd be really good if we can kind of go through and maybe address some of the questions as we're working through here from the audience. So my first question out to the panel would be, it's a basic one, is how do you actually change the SIM without replacing the physical SIM? Do you download another profile?
Yes, in fact, what happens is that SIM is baked in day one. So when you take it out, there is a device. When you enable it, it actually bootstraps onto Vodafone's network, and that enables it to connect for the very first time. It then recognizes who is the carrier for that particular device, and then that carrier's profile is downloaded to the SIM. So all that happens automatically, and I think that's the strength of having all of the players in this ecosystem aligned. It makes it very easy. Bang, one shot. You design it, you design connectivity as a component, and it doesn't matter where it ends up, it's going to actually connect, convert, and run.
And so, thanks, Phil. I think that's a good perspective there. Avishai or Juan, anything to add?
No, actually, I don't have anything specific to add. This is the way, as we said in the beginning, that iSIM benefit from the standardization of eSIM that allows downloading profiles and of new MNO and change connectivity and switch between them. So although this entire activity is a little bit pre-standards, also although the standards are progressing this direction, we adopted the standard protocol and we benefit from it and from all the infrastructure that was defined and built by our partners.
Yes, and
Yep.
Dave, if I can add,
Yeah.
you know, this is exactly one of the benefits of this technology, and most important is on the IoT devices. You know, have the possibility to change provider, changing the profile when we have to think that in many cases in industrial applications, the IoT devices or even logistics, you know, the devices are not so easy accessible, and also it cannot, there's not a solution to be changing, to have to change the SIM card in thousands or millions of devices. So this is one of the big benefits of the integrated SIM.
Yeah, that ability to be able to, you know, deploy and think about the management of fleets in the tens of thousands, let alone millions, where you can actually manage and know that you have that ubiquitous, and that's a really good point to tie back together there. Another good question, one more good question to come up that I think that we would like to tackle really quick is, you know, what about security of iSIM? It's a good question coming there. Are there concerns about using an integrated SIM instead of discrete secure SIM controller? Be great to kind of go on that. Like, maybe you could start from that perspective there to address that one.
Sure. So first, I would say the industry setting itself to really apply the same security standard on integrated SIM, right? Notably those capable of, you know, switching connectivity suppliers, right? Subject to the same standards and evolution of this standard, but the security bar stays extremely high to the level of a classical discrete SIM or eSIM for that matter. That starts with the hardware, a really strong foundation of the hardware subject to potential certifications, and then a test of both the hardware and the software IP, the OS that run on this hardware to deliver the SIM functionality. I would add to that really I think I see the iSIM as really a change in packaging coming from the eSIM. The really tough revolution was the move from non-switchable SIM, right, to a SIM capable of multiple profile of connectivity. And that was the eSIM evolution. And we are just taking advantage of those technology and leveraging the same security embedded or in the back office. And maybe Avishai, you can comment also on the hardware embedded security further.
Yeah, so I think the basics of the integrated SIM is to have the same security level of the legacy form factors of SIM. But on top of that, the fact that it is integrated adds two more factors. One is that there is no real access, physical access to the interface between the SIM and the modem, where information can be easily observed because there is no security on that interface, and the location of the integrated hardware is not clear on the entire device, which the chip itself is almost the size of an embedded SIM. So for the attacker, on top of the fact that all the countermeasures to ensure same level of security are implemented, it's much harder to access the hardware or to identify the location of the hardware in order to attack. And this is highly important in the world of IoT, where devices are just deployed out there without a user attached to them, like in cell phones, that can identify if someone tries to attack. So it adds several levels which are very important in the world of IoT.
Thanks, Avishai. Thanks, Avishai, for that. What I think we're coming to a close. I kind of want to bring one last question to the table here, and I'm going to start with you on this one, Juan. One of the things we wanted to bring to the group as well is how is the market reacting to this, and what market validations have we seen today? I know you had an example we could share with the group, and maybe we could start there and then go around the table to kind of close this out.
Yes, sure. I think, and this is a good example actually, because this company is MachineMax, who provides tracking solutions and monitoring for construction, big construction machines, in this area. So they need to track, and they do also condition monitoring for adding sensors in this box. And they are working now with a solution which is using a SIM. So that they are planning to, as they plan to scale up in volumes, they will be shipping these devices to all over the world, and they don't want to be locked to the device when they need to change SIM card, because they decide to move to a local provider or a better provider, whatever. So this is a very good example, and from other customers we are in contact. So the request to have the flexibility that the integrated SIM provides is being demanded quite often in the last months, So and this is a good example. So we try to also to help our customers, providing hardware solutions, hardware tools they can use to test these technologies, because in the IoT space, most of the customers, they want to try the technologies before they go with these technologies to a final product. So one of these tools we developed to help our customers is what we call it the iEnabler, and we have been working with the rest of the team here, the different partners in this work together to develop a version of this tool incorporating the integrated SIM, so that we can provide this to our customers, and our partners can also provide this tool to our customers to test in reality on the field the integrated SIM technology and its capabilities.
Thanks for that, Juan. Sorry, so I was going to say, Loic, do you have any other examples we could talk about, just some market examples, and as we're going to close here?
Yeah, so I would say we've been working on some, for example, connected consumer devices, right? So really devices that were not foreseen to be ever connected, start to be connected in some ways to improve usability, to provide new service or updates to the actual device that can be deployed via software. So this is a more integrated experience from the manufacturer to its customer base, whether it's a professional customer base or just the grand public.
Phil or Avishai, any last thoughts to add on what we're seeing in the market and in the last?
Yeah,
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, there's a couple. For me, this is really opening up two quite new domains. So one of them is around supply chain monitoring, where people actually want to know how long a product stays in the supply chain, and then where does it end up, and how long does it take to be used. And we're seeing a lot of traction around smart labels. And I think we're going to see a little video on smart labels a little bit later on. I think the other one is around being able to track deposit-based units. So these may be bottles of gas, they may be liquids, they may be machine casings. There's a whole range of different things where you can basically set one of these on it. It needs no battery. You stick it on and it just gives you additional visibility through the supply chain. The other part is that once it's been delivered, of course, you get all of that information coming back. So you understand its condition as well as how it's being used. So it's really, we're seeing this idea of using it to create visibility right the way through the supply chain and back again. And that's really sort of the mass market type applications that iSIM will enable.
Excellent, Phil. Avishai, any last thoughts?
I think that we see that iSIM is gaining more and more momentum in the market these days, and we expect it to gain more. A lot of devices and new use cases or new type of devices that we never thought would be connected. We start getting approached by manufacturers. The smart label was already mentioned several times, which we are producing, and we see again a lot of logistics players that want to use this cool product to track their goods. So I expect more and more use cases to arise, and also more and more industry work around converging it into industry-wide solution that emerge from this ecosystem into the wider GSMA-based standardization and larger ecosystem.
Thanks, Avishai, appreciate it. So with that, I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists, to thank the panelists that we've had here today. I really appreciate everybody's participation. From ARM, Sony, Flex, and Vodafone Business, thank you very much to each of you for joining today. We're gonna have, we have more materials that you can learn more on, and we have these 2 links here that you can see here at the end of the presentation. What I'm gonna do right now is to kind of close out. I'm gonna go back and show the video that Phil shared, just to kind of give everybody a kind of closing view of what we're seeing in the market, just to give you kind of a visualization. And then we'll come back to this thank you and appreciate it. But I just wanted to thank all of my panelists here today. I'll put it onto this kind of view just to give you kind of this quick video representation of what we've been talking about, and look forward to connecting with each of you as you learn more about what we're doing with integrated SIM and the iSIM market in general. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for attending, and appreciate your time. Have a great rest of DevSummit. Goodbye, all.
Bye-bye. Thank you for having us.
Bye, everyone.